We're privileged, unexpectedly, to be able to welcome as the next speaker, the head of Wikileaks, Kristinn. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, George. Thank you all. And I'm happy to be here. It's been a very busy day. My mind is full of anger, actually, after today's sentencing that you've all heard of. It was a great shock to be in court today and observing a judge basically dismissing every mitigating and strong evidence in support of Julian Assange. The judge who obviously had pre-written the decision before she heard the counter-argument, it was quite obvious, and then giving Julian Assange, well, de facto the maximum sentence of a year imprisonment minus 2 weeks. This is absurd. This is no justice. This is a vindictive and a political decision. And my God, there was a question going through my mind. Will we ever have any justice? Will Julian Assange have any justice in the tough fight that we have ahead of us, which is fighting the extradition to the United States, where we all know what awaits him? Life imprisonment, possible death sentence for the crime of publishing truthful information, for doing journalism. It's an outrage. And I'm still angry, and I'm sorry if I'm expressing it in too stronger terms, but it is. Are we seeing a total breakdown in every norms? Are we seeing a total dismissal of justice on every front, not just national but also international? I was observing the judge today mocking the United Nations and the finding by a respected tribunal, basically a United Nations court, who found in Julian Assange's favor. She was mocking the finding and say that it was all based on misunderstanding, and it doesn't even touch upon us. We don't have to abide by that. It doesn't really matter what the United Nations say. And the judge was echoing the words of the former foreign secretary of this country, who said exactly the same. So the United Kingdom government and the judiciary here has decided that the United Nations do not matter. You can dismiss it when it is not ruling in your favor, when it doesn't suit your political objective. At the same time, the judges and the political leadership in this country are saying, well, nobody is above the law. Julian Assange is not above the law. But who is claiming to be above international law and consensus about core values? It is the government of his country and the judiciary here. Will Julian Assange have any justice facing the extradition request by the US government in the court in this country? I doubt it, but we will fight on. We will not give up, because it's a fight about fundamental principles. It's mostly ignored by the media, the mainstream media as well, which is alarming. For the first time today, I sensed in the eyes of the many journalists I talked to, maybe an inkling of what it actually meant to them, their security, their future, their jobs, if this extradition would be allowed to go ahead. I think they are slowly getting it, and it's about time. I was just reviewing, I had to stop on my way here to read over an interview that was passed to me and with a German weekly, where I was asked, is Julian Assange a journalist or an activist? I said, well, is that a question? I mean, if you're an activist fighting for transparency, for accountability, for truth, is that activism? Well, I called it journalism. I was raised on that principle. So there's no difference in my mind. Somehow, in this distorted world that we have been led into, there's a distinction here. So what does journalism mean today to people who ask questions of that nature? Well, it's obviously not being critical to power, to hold them accountable. And I was reflecting today as well, many people were asking me, what can we do? I was actually lacking words. I would probably be better to taking advice from you. I've been in the mainstream media for 20 years. I've been with Wikileaks for 10 years. It's my career. I've been trying to be a dedicated, honest journalist. And the values have never changed. But I'm feeling that we are coming to a juncture where things actually are breaking down totally. All the norms, everything we believe in the democratic principles. When Julian Assange the other day was awarded the Daphne Garcia Award by the European Parliament, one of the members of the panel said that the extradition demand by the US, this extraterritorial power, the reach which is taken for granted, and you mentioned, Annie, it's absurd. He said this is not attack on European democracy, our principles on this end, and it has to be fought. What can we do? Can we trust the politicians? Can we trust the judiciary? Can we trust the mainstream media? You tell me. I told people it's time probably to mobilize, to take to the streets, to actually let people know, to demand justice. We can't take this anymore. I'm emotional about this. Today is my 18th birthday of my daughter, my younger child. And I feel ashamed that I am sort of been trying for 30 years as a journalist to fight for some principles. What kind of world am I delivering to my children? I feel ashamed that I'm delivering to my children a world in a much worse place than it was. Even decades ago, even the Nixon era. It's absurd. Daniel Ellsberg once told me, the person who leaked the Pentagon Papers in 1971, he said, my God, if I had been doing this today under the secret courts, the grand juries, this fists of power crashing down everywhere, I would not see a day outside prison. I would have spent the rest of my days in prison. So we are worse off today than we were in the early 70s in the Nixon era. That is pretty chilling. That is bad. I wish I could leave you with a positive note. The only thing that I can tell you is that we will not give up. Wikileaks will not perish. We will get Assange free. I was asked by the same journalist, will Wikileaks be alive in 10 years? I said, well, my mother was born in 1941. At that time, there was a British Empire where the sun never set. It has diminished quite a bit. So empires have a tendency to exponentially actually diminish in power these days. We have now one empire presiding with extraterritorial reach all over the world. In 10 years, we don't know about the empire, but I will put my bet on Wikileaks and the ideals that Wikileaks stand for to be alive in 10 years. That's for sure. Thank you.